What's going on, listeners? Welcome back to another episode of Matt Goes to the Movies. You've seen the title, you've clicked on it. It's a movie that is really just taking the box office by storm. We are here today to discuss the movie The Batman, not Batman, The Batman. And I am super excited because with that, it means that a familiar I shouldn't say face, I should say voice, since these are always audio, but a familiar voice. And that is Harrison from the Basement Binge is once again here with us to discuss this movie. Harrison, it feels like for me almost an eternity since I actually watched this movie, but still incredibly fresh in my head based on what I think of this. So I am super excited to actually talk about this movie and really excited to hear your thoughts because I just recently re-listened to all of your Christopher Nolan Batman movie reviews. So I am extremely interested to see what you think of this Batman.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. Life has been busy, and so I haven't done a podcast in a long time. And then I saw this movie on the first, if I remember right. That was a long time ago, and I've also been like waiting to talk about this. And you and me had mentioned how we were going to do it, and then I was going to do my own, and I just didn't. And so I'm glad that you reached out to me to finally do it because, I mean, like podcast stuff aside, I'm just excited to talk about the Batman, as you said, the.
Yeah, it's it's not that I haven't talked about this movie because we went with a group of 11 people. So I've had a chance to talk about this with my son, with my girlfriend. I've talked about this with people from work because part of that group of 11 people were people that I worked with. But there's always something different like doing this than just kind of talking about it in, I shouldn't say casual environment because this is, but I'm sure you get what I mean. There's just something different about talking about it in this format. So I am really excited to get into this. So with that being said, listeners, we're going to jump right in to the first segment here at Matt Goes to the Movies, which is called the Watch Rating. Now, if you're a first-time listener, watch rating, what this is, we go through 3 levels. Is the watch rating high, medium, or low? And that's rewatchability. If it's high, the movie is worth multiple rewatches based on a variety of factors. Medium, it's got redeeming qualities. It could pull you back in. If a group of friends were watching it or was on the TV or something like that, or you're looking at one of your streaming services and it says like recommended for you. Oh yeah, sure. I'll click on that. Or low, movie's terrible, doesn't have any redeeming qualities. That's how we're going to rate this. And in that segment, we will also give a spoiler-free reaction as to why we think it falls into that category before we really start breaking this movie down. So, Harrison, for watch rating, I'm going to let you go first and tell us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, this is actually really easy. This is a high. I haven't had a chance to go see it again, but I really want to. I'm sure eventually I'll catch it at like kind of its tail end of its theater run, and then definitely on the home release, I'm going to be watching this again. Definitely a movie that I would, if I had a chance to go see this, I would go see it again. And I've been dying to, and I know I'm not the only one. People online are going to see it. It's just, as far as Batman goes and what I like to watch in a Batman movie, this has given me new ideas of what I want in a Batman movie. That aside, I just love Matt Reeves' direction. I love the cast. And so I love just the entire creation of this film. And so it's just watching it is just like invigorating. It's great to watch. And I'm sure especially rewatch would grant so many fun details and just new richness to so many things. So yeah, I'm going to be seeing this a lot.
Yeah, for me, this is a no-brainer. This watch rating is a high for all the reasons that you mentioned, and for a lot of the reasons that you didn't, that I'm sure we'll both get into in spoiler section. This is just a movie that I think is really rich with background story, emotional beats, just subtle character movements, body language. There's so much going on here that's not directly on the surface that I think requires multiple rewatches. And it doesn't hurt that I think the movie is awesome. But realistically, too, viewers don't have to wait that long. If for some reason you still, I know a lot of mandates are lifted in certain places, and COVID, and it's still a thing, but some places are a little bit looser on restrictions now, and I'm sure some people still don't want to go to the theater, but this is going to be released on HBO Max April 19th, so we're pretty much a month away from this
No
being.
way.
Yeah,
I didn't
April
know that.
19th.
That's so soon. That's like a
Yeah.
month and a half after its release. Dang,
Yep.
that's cool.
Yeah, so I'm sure with how many people have already seen this. I mean, this thing is, you know, uh, a juggernaut right now at the box office. It's making a lot of money. A lot more eyes are going to be on this thing within a month's time here. So I'm super excited about that, and it will definitely be something that if I don't get into the theaters to see it again, day one, it will be a rewatch on HBO Max, and probably day three, it will be another watch. So I am super excited to talk about this. But Harrison, before we get into that, any other thing that you want to add on any of that before we move into spoilers?
Um, no, I'm sure we're going to talk about this a ton. Uh, this is just a movie that I feel like we as like a movie going audience, as a comic book movie, superhero movie audience, have been anticipating for a long time. I went and saw this alone. I saw it on like the IMAX fan event. I got like one of the last
Yeah.
tickets that was available. I was pretty near the front. Um, that thing sold out quick. But I was totally alone. But I was next to someone, and we didn't talk much afterwards. But just like it, while the movie was happening, the reactions we were having together was such a fun experience that I'll really remember for a long time. So it's just like it. This is one of those movies that really brought back a lot of the fun of being with an audience.
Yeah, I mean, my audience was more of like my people, because, like I said, we went with a group of 11, and we had the entire back row, just picked off of me, my son, Jen, and coworkers and friends. And there was just so many times when I looked to my left and my son looked to his right, and we just kind of stared at each other for a second because of things
Yeah,
going on in the screen. It was just such a fun experience. So, listeners, if you haven't seen the Batman, and for whatever reason you're like, you know what, I actually don't want to be spoiled, I need to see this movie on my own, this is where you pause the episode and you come back to us after you've seen it, because the next segment that we're getting into is called Popcorn Time. Popcorn Time at Matt Goes to the Movies. This is where it's completely spoilers. We break down the summary of the movie, main characters, themes, relatable messages. We'll talk about favorite parts of the movie, least favorite parts, favorite characters, and basically just everything that makes up this movie. So, Harrison, one thing that we talked about when this movie was announced and as it was, delayed and everything else that went on before this movie was released, we both really had the same thought in terms of, I think we had a lot of trust in this movie just based on the name that was attached to it. I had more trust based on another name than I think a lot of people, but the name that I'm talking about first is Matt Reeves.
yeah.
And what he has done with the Planet of the Apes trilogy, I was so enamored with that series. I thought what he was able to capture in character development with apes, I thought it was amazing. And the fact that he was attached to this, it instantly captured me to this movie. I mean, it's Batman, so automatically I'm there. But Matt Reeves' style and his thought process for how he wants to make a movie, I've always been impressed with. And I'll let you get into that. But the second name that intrigued me and I was so ready for right from the announcement of casting, and you know this from me talking to you, and if Rob is listening to this episode, listeners know Rob very well. I constantly said, I am so ready for Robert Pattinson to be Batman, to be Bruce Wayne. And I was like, his name also attached to this project made me trust in this movie. and it had so many good vibes for me personally based off of those two people before we actually even saw anything, before there was a trailer, before there was a screenshot of what his suit was going to look like. For me, those two names really started the hype train.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I could go down the list of the other individuals involved in this film as well. Two other particular names for me would be the cinematographer Greg Fraser and the composer Michael Giacchino. But when like those four people, Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson, Michael Giacchino, and Greg Fraser, like that's my dream team. Genuinely, like when I just found out the four of them were on a project together, I'll go see it, whatever it is. And then that it's a Batman project. Particularly Matt Reeves. I mean, he just blew me away with his Planet of the Apes trilogy. I know he didn't direct the first film, but the second two he directed, just his direction style is really, really unique. And to see someone like him come up and do a Batman movie, I just couldn't wait, because the way that he changed Planet of the Apes to like 100% be Planet of the Apes while not being Planet of the Apes, I couldn't wait to see what he did with Batman. And then you have talked about this a ton, but I've been kind of riding the coattails of you talking about Robert Pattinson as Batman. I knew he was going to knock it out of the park, and he did. But he, more than anything, what excited me for this movie, definitely Matt Reeves, Greg Fraser, Michael Giacchino, was I knew Robert Pattinson was going to be good, and I just wanted to see how he was good, if you know what I mean, because I feel like he's so talented and dynamic. I knew what he was going to do was good. I didn't know exactly what it was, and I couldn't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think he brings, and we'll get into this later, he just brings such a. I feel like he brings a really good balance to both Batman and Bruce Wayne. They do seem like two totally different entities in this movie, which I think, again, we've talked about in other things, that it's hard to portray that. You've had actors that you're like, oh, they're a good Bruce Wayne, but they're a bad Batman. Oh, they're a good Batman, but they're not a really good Bruce Wayne. I like what he does with both. I like what he does with both characters in this movie. And again, you can just go through the casting, but you have Zoe Kravitz, and I think she is unbelievable. I think she's a
Oh my gosh,
knockout in this. Even
agreed.
so, even somebody as simple as John Turturro, who, if you don't know him, maybe a lot of fans know him from the Transformers movie, and he's goofy. He gets peed on. He wears a jock strap in one of them. Like, he's a comedic character in those movies. He's not meant to be taken seriously. And even his portrayal in this movie of Carmine Falcone, I was just blown away with the casting. Andy Serkis is Alfred. He's used sparingly, but there's so many good scenes. I think there's so many good scenes with him, and there's such a build to where that relationship is and what you'll see from that. Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon, I could probably do an entire episode just talking about this guy as James Gordon by himself. And not to mention just him, but I want to get into this relationship that him and Batman have, because I don't think it's ever been portrayed like this in any Batman movie. And one last person I want to mention before we start to talk about, the beginning stretch of this movie, Colin Farrell. What if you didn't know? How do you know that guy's Penguin? What a transformation between like prosthetics for his face. Like, I thought, again, there's so many characters in this movie that you could talk about as being a standout.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to second everything you said. I feel like Zoe Kravitz, just every scene she was in, she just was incredible. And the chemistry between her and Robert Pattinson is phenomenal. And then
Oh,
Jeffrey
oh.
Wright, what an interesting take um Gordon, on James Gordon. Right after the movie, I went to my local library, checked out a bunch of Batman comics because they were all out before the movie, so I couldn't get them before. They were finally back, and I grabbed them. And I was reading a bunch of them, and I felt like this is a Batman, or excuse me, a Gordon who we haven't seen before. I'm not going to say the most comic accurate, because it depends which comic you're reading. But like particularly the one that I just read. This is the one I literally just finished. Dark Victory. I felt like as I read that comic, I was like, wow, they like took so much of this character and put him in Jeffrey Wright in like the unsaid part of the character. And I just love that, particularly the relationship between him and Batman. I loved. Yeah, everyone else you mentioned, Paul Dano, yeah, but John Turturro. When I didn't know he was in the movie, I didn't look at the casting, and he showed up, and I was like, if I remember right, because it's been a while, you don't quite see his face as Carmine Falcone, but like I got like the slightest hint that it was him, and I was like, no way, is that John Turturro? He's gonna be Falcone, and then he was, and he plays it perfectly. The casting of this movie is phenomenal. Like just everyone involved, even like those people who the less big names, the way they play everything, I don't know. The casting was phenomenal through and through. Andy Serkis, yeah, he's
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't know he was in this. John Turturro, I didn't know he was in this movie either until I saw him, and I was like, "Holy cow! I can't believe that's him." Because again, all I really
yeah.
know him from, and all I associate with him is, um, shoot, what was his name in Transformers? Agent,
Oh, I forget.
yeah, whoever he was, but
All I can think of him is in Transformers and Oh Brother Where Art Thou, like just two comedy.
right, exactly. But he's great in this. So, the story for the Batman. This is a Batman that is still very young, but a much different take than we got in Batman Begins, which was also sort of like an origin story for Batman. This is a Batman that is still very young into the career of Batman. He's in year 2 of how long he's been doing this in Gotham. And I love how he's portrayed right off the bat. First of all, the idea that he actually narrates this movie for part of it, I love. I absolutely love that direction. I love that he has a journal that he writes in. And to me, I think this is what I liked most about Reeves is there's so many different interpretations of him, but I like this version of Batman and this version of Bruce Wayne because what if you try to think about it and break it down, how how would a guy that dresses up as a bat to fight criminals, how would this guy live his life when he's not doing that? We've certainly seen it's the billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne. That's not the Bruce Wayne that you have in this movie. This is a guy who doesn't care about his family name in the public eye. And I think this line is fantastic, especially for how he's portrayed in this movie. There's a scene when Alfred says, "Oh, there's investors coming," and he's like, "You invited them here." And Alfred's like, "Well, you wouldn't go to them, so I had to." And he's like, "I don't care about any of that." And Alfred says to him, "You don't care about your family's legacy." And he says, "What I'm doing is my family's legacy." He doesn't think that his family's money and influence in the city to try and help develop it or give money to the police or whatever else may have been an interpretation of Bruce Wayne in other movies or other medium. That's not important to him. That's not how he honors his family's legacy. Being Batman is how he views his family's legacy. And I thought that was just a really interesting take. And I thought it was like a really powerful line to Alfred that's not, what Alfred perceives as his family's legacy is definitely not what this Bruce Wayne thinks his family legacy should be.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like the character just written and performed was really interesting because this guy has been doing this for he's in his second year.
Right.
This isn't easy. And clearly the emotional state of Bruce Wayne and just like the physical I'm thinking like logistical, like just like the existence as far as like time goes, he's Batman. He's not Bruce Wayne anymore. He's just
Right.
Batman. Like
Yeah.
and I love just how little we see him as Bruce Wayne, and when he's Bruce Wayne, he's just being Batman without the Batman suit on. Um, but also the way that when he is Bruce Wayne, it is a very different person than Batman, and the two different characters that they are, and I love that. And all the interviews I've watched with Robert Pattinson, you can tell that he had similar ideas from the comics. He references a lot of great comics to read that I've been trying to get through, and just the way he performs this character that we've seen before, with a little bit more. I don't know, not reality, because it's not like the, and I don't want to make a ton of comparisons to the Dark Knight because they're different, but not that that universe isn't grounded in reality. They definitely are, but a very different
D-
reality.
yeah, I was gonna say that as much as we talk about Nolan like grounding Batman and being in like this does, and again, I don't want to get too far into comparisons. I do want to keep those movies. Some of them I am going to make, but I want to keep those movies as their own thing because certainly they have so many merits and are such really good
Right.
movies, and they have so many fans and so many things to talk positively about. But this movie, again, for its own entity, it takes the grounded part and it goes a little bit more down into the ground. Like this
Yeah.
Batman, he doesn't have, from what we see, he doesn't have a Lucius Fox. Like this is Batman like doing everything on his own. He is designing his stuff. He doesn't have military type prototypes to turn into his weapons, his car. This is a guy that took a muscle car and made it into the Batmobile, which we can talk about
Yeah.
that car coming onto the scene and that like first reveal of like, oh, he's ready to do some damage.
Yeah.
But this is such a ground, like this really is in a much different light, a grounded Batman. And
Yes.
I like how one thing that I just loved in this movie, like this is a Batman that is not a I fight from the shadows, I take an advantage point. Like this is a Batman that takes his lumps. Like this guy gets hit and he knows he's going to get hit. He takes gunfire, he takes pipes, like he takes a beating, but part of the way that he gets to these criminals and he gets close to fight is he knows he has to take shots. And I just loved this Batman's attitude of, okay, I'm gonna take a couple, but you're gonna be the one that's on the ground at the end of this.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it really was a like adds into the character as well that this is a Batman that is really leaning into the symbol, so to speak, of Batman, and more than he said, the warning that is the symbol of Batman,
Mm-hmm.
the threatening, almost ego of Batman, just leaning into that so much. The way the suit is just like a little bit big and just beastly, I just really, really enjoy. And I think that that combined with something you mentioned earlier that I forgot to comment on, his journal and him narrating is this is 100% Bruce's story. Everything happening is about Bruce. And I know we've talked like this has been done so many different times in many, many different formats that Batman stories have been told in, where it's like Bruce Wayne taking back his city and caring for his city, and it's a personal fight because of what happened to him. This feels, as far as like the storytelling goes, the way that the story is told is very much told within those veins. That this is Bruce Wayne's, this is Batman's journey. Um, yeah, almost like we're witnessing his journal, so to speak. Um, and I think that we see that in the way that he portrays that character of Batman, and it's so interesting to see that because it just feels very much like this is someone who's just slightly unhinged, um, and it's just great, and it makes for some great scenes.
Yeah, I think, and that's part of his journey that I like in this movie is as the movie progresses, and especially when we get to the end, eh, this is a real story, and even for the citizens of he goes, from being kind of unhinged and just really like on the brink, so to speak, to okay, I need, there's when he's at the funeral as Bruce Wayne, um, the mayor candidate, I forgot her name. She says like, "Oh, Bruce Wayne, like you could be doing more for the city, but for as far as I can tell, you're doing nothing." Eh, as somebody as Bruce Wayne who's like, "Well, what I do for the city is Batman." Even that journey, I feel like he realizes, okay, he needs to be more than just a symbol of fear. And I think that is like represented so well towards the end of this movie. And I won't give the example yet because that'll be when we get towards that part. But his journey as Batman, I think, has this really logical conclusion. And one thing that I want to touch on is one thing I like about this movie so much, and Harrison, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but if I never got a sequel to this movie with Pattinson and Matt Reeves behind the helm, the way that they told this story, I feel like this movie can truly stand on its own as a great Batman story without having to see anything else that he has done for Gotham after this, because the world building in this is it's there, but this is not one of those movies that falls into the pitfalls of, okay, look what we gave you in movie 1 is a we have more to tell you in 2. Like what we're going to give you is going to be better than this. So just sit through this so that you can get to what's actually going to be good and what you want to see. I think this movie gives you a natural, organic Batman story with world builders that are just their backgrounds. You can start to picture where this universe could go, but this movie can be self contained and you can say, this is what Batman did for this city, and go, I'm sure like, I could see him turning Gotham around and like Gotham actually getting better because of the events of this movie. And I would hate to never see a sequel to this. But I think this is a rare movie where it's so self contained that you could just let this be.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Um, I was saying I agree with you. I feel like this was a movie where the ending, it was an ending of the journey that Batman was going on, or Bruce was going on, whichever character you want to pick. It's kind of both. Um, and we don't need more. Yes, there are more stories that could be told because it's Batman and Gotham. Naturally, stories exist there, but it doesn't need to because he I mean, the story ended, so to speak, and I love how the story ended, particularly the cinematography of him leading those people with his red flare
Mm-hmm.
through the water, just phenomenal. I mean, just iconography, great, but just what it meant for the character and the way it was shot, and like his closing narration, I just like, I just like cheered for him. Like
Mm-hmm.
I felt so much emotion and like I'm sure people can relate to this. When you finish a movie, you feel excitement for yourself. Like, yeah, I just watched an awesome movie. I finished that movie and I was like, good for Bruce Wayne. Like, Batman just did something difficult that was really hard and he needed to do. And look where he's at because of it. Like, I don't normally feel that way, especially about superhero films. And I just,
Mm-hmm.
think the way that story, I mean, it was a 3 hour movie, so it better do something. But I think the way that they used that was exceptional, like you said.
Yeah, and I mean, even think about, you know, not only that scene of him leading them through the water, which I like the little call out to the animated series because the sky was always red in
Mm,
that show. I like that a lot too. But think about the change in the city. Sure, there's an uneasy alliance with the police force that you see. He certainly has a really good relationship with Gordon, but everyday civilians still are like not sure. He goes from people being scared of him to civilians actually like he's carrying civilians out of the rubble as they're holding on to him, and he's taking them to help after he leads them out of Gotham Square Garden. I'm just going to say really quick, I think that's the one thing that I really rolled my eyes and I was like, you couldn't think of any other name for that building? Like, give me a break. But that shot of him carrying people and that civilian just with their arms wrapped around him as he's carrying them as Batman, that is as he's talking about, I need to be something more for this city. That is such a character development. And granted, like you said, I mean, the movie is 3 hours long, but with 3 hours long, I never once found myself going, I wonder how much time we have left in this, because that 3 hours for me, you could have told me it was an hour and a half and I would have believed you, because I was drawn to everything that was on that screen.
Yeah, I did not realize it was 3 hours until I looked at my watch afterwards, and it was earned. And I agree with you that that final scene, it was a journey for Batman, and it was a journey for the city of Gotham. And the way that the film ended, I thought was incredible, especially because of the way it started.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, like you can't have a good ending without a good beginning, and just everything in between as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, talking about, the beginning, that first establishing shot of him, just, him, the slow reveal and the tension building of like the thugs looking into that blackened alley space, and then boom, he hits the screen for the first time. The music is, the theme is hitting, which I absolutely love. The score for this movie is amazing. It certainly doesn't hurt that I think his this costume interpretation, I think, is freaking amazing. I love this costume for Batman. I'm interested to see, obviously, maybe some changes as he's developing more as Batman. I think certainly we'll get a different outfit in the second one. At this point, I can't believe there wouldn't be a sequel. This movie's making too much money. But I love his costume in this movie. It definitely ranks as, I have to do like a reassessment of all the suits. But this might be like a 1A 1B situation for me, because I love this Batman suit.
I agree. This Batman suit is sweet, and that opening, then the way that that opening immediately changes your perception of the character. I just thought was fantastic. We get so many scenes of those thugs like just looking in the darkness and thinking like, is it gonna be him? Is he gonna come out
Mm-hmm.
of there? I love that opening. It was so exciting. Like I said, me and the person like next to me just kept looking at each other like, oh no, which one is it? And then when he does come out and he just the slow walk again, like I said, just leaning into that image that is Batman walking out of the shadows and what that means, and the way he fights, leaning into it more is just fantastic.
Yeah, and again, like, using the shadows, but again, a different interpretation of it, where he doesn't use the shadows to fight, because he comes right out and says, "No, I'm here." Think about where, I mean, there is a scene where he walks up to the club dressed as Batman, and just knocks on the door, and he's like, "Do you know who I am?" And just
Yeah,
so calm and cool and calculated, like, "Oh, you better get out of here or you're going to have blood on there." And he's like, "Mine are yours." Cuz he doesn't care, cuz yeah, sure, maybe some of it's going to be his, but the majority of it's going to be yours if you force that hand. And I just love how he is willing to just go toe to toe. That scene where he's taking gunfire and just walking towards these henchmen, like, I saw it in the trailer, but seeing it on the big screen, I was just like, I I don't know how a movie can do so many things right. I just kept thinking like, okay, where's a misstep here? Like, where is this gonna fall? And again, if it's that weird naming of Gotham Square Garden, I mean, I'll take that, because I was just, part of me kept going, well, this is so good, and this is so good, and this is so good. You'd think there'd be some sort of drop off naturally with anything. And I just kept going, well, this is better than the last part, and this is better, and this is better. And, just when I thought he couldn't get more intimidating, he shows up to the crime scene, and that cop puts his hand on his chest and is like, whoa, what are you doing? And just like the way he looks at that cop's hand and then looks at him, and it's just like, if Gordon wasn't here,
Yeah.
I would mess you up right now. Like,
Yeah.
like
That
you,
is a fantastic scene.
like you have no, like that look in his eyes, like you have no clue how lucky you are because I'd break your hand right now.
Yeah, that is a fantastic scene. And then what follows it as well, where we start with Batman just beating up some thugs, and then we see him be a detective, and like the transition between the two with that scene you mentioned is so much fun and just great writing. Again, like he never lets the character of Batman go, and I go back to what I said earlier that like this guy's almost a little crazy, like he's almost lost it, not quite,
Mm-hmm.
but almost. Because then he comes in and it like get like the noir elements of Batman, and we see him be a detective. And there's some moments where he's not a very good one, but for the most part, he's a fantastic detective. And it's him and Gordon working together is just a blast.
Yeah, just that relationship with Gordon and that trust that they've already developed and that uneasiness, I think is something we haven't seen it to this degree. And again, I'm not going to sit there and talk about anything that the other movies have done. It's just I don't think we've seen the partnership that we saw in this movie between them, that they really were this close and everybody knew about it. It just, this relationship feels much different than the other interpretations that we've gotten on screen. I like it. And even to the point where, when he's in the police station and the cops, I can't remember the exact number. He was like, now I've got you assaulting an officer. He's like, three of them, or like, where like that. But Gordon like pushing him up against the wall and being like, chill. Even in the moment when Batman thinks that like Gordon's actually like with these guys, because he's like, all of these people are corrupt, and really just his look when he looks at Gordon, he's like, you too. Like, I, I thought we were supposed to be in this together. And for that split second, you can sense like a sense of betrayal from Batman. Like you're also going to do this. Like you're going to be on their side. And then just like the realization that, okay, like we're good. I just love the portrayal of this relationship and the dynamic.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that like to see the ways that we've seen their relationship in the past, I feel like we get both of them like I don't know, like actually working together. Like instead of
Right.
like being forced to work together or just so happens that they're working together, like this is a choice where they value that friendship, they value that partnership. And I just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I think too one of the other things that I like, this Bruce Wayne character, like you said, this is a guy who he still is just very bogged down, and he has not gotten over what happened to his parents. It's still very
Yeah.
much lingering on him, and it's certainly been portrayed in other movies, but he's just so devastated by this and subtle things that I think Pattinson does as Bruce Wayne, even though really like, kind of like you said, most of the stuff when he's Bruce Wayne, he's literally Batman, but it doesn't make sense for him to wear the outfit in his home when he's looking at clues from his, again, I love it, take it from the comics, his freaking videotaping contact lens.
Yes.
He's still, even as Bruce Wayne in this movie, he's still Batman. Like,
Yeah.
again, it doesn't make sense for him to be in his living room of his mansion in the bat suit. But he's
Yeah.
still doing things as Batman. Um, but subtle things that he does with his body language, his eye movement, even when he talks to Alfred, and he says to Alfred, you're not my father. And Alfred looks at him and just kind of takes like a deep breath and he says, I'm aware of that. Pattinson doesn't even say another word, but his body language, you can tell that in that moment, he realizes that he hurt Alfred and he doesn't want to do that. But again, he's very much like he's so close at any given moment to feeling like he could tip over, so to speak. And there's just a very fine line sometimes with realizing that what he said hurt somebody that actually cares about him. And he says that he doesn't want to lose anybody else that he cares about. And, that's not losing Alfred, but he doesn't want to hurt him. And saying that line to him that you're not my father, like it bothers him that he hurt Alfred.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really, really interesting relationship where we see Bruce who's harboring that emotion and isn't afraid to let it show. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, this is like, uh, how can I say it? Like, I got to be respectful to Alfred or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like that. Like he's just letting the emotion out because clearly this is somebody who is hurt by what happened to his parents, but he's still bothered that he hurt Alfred's feelings. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it is such a good balance. Just the way that this character is, uh, and I think in that scene kind of shows it almost like losing his grip on things. I think this Batman stuff is taking a toll on him, and I
Right.
and I think that that is uh, a big, like, why this journey of what he goes through is so important because he gets that grip back. Um, and yeah, and it comes from the relationships he have, be that Alfred or Gordon. It's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we haven't scratched the surface on the Riddler. We haven't talked
Yeah,
really about Catwoman. We haven't mentioned any of those things. So let's try and talk about that. And I do want to make this is the one comparison that I really want to make. That really is something that this movie 100% I think showed better than anything that relationship. And that is the relationship between Batman and Selina Kyle. The end of this movie, the journey that they go on together, I think their ending is earned throughout this movie more so than any other portrayal that we've done. I say we, but any other like portrayal that we've seen on the screen, because them like, why don't you come with me? Like, I just feel like the relationship that we know for Batman and Selina from like the comic books or even like these Arkham games that have come out, this
Mhm.
feels like that couple that is on again, off again, will always come back to each other just because they're kindred spirits, but they're almost too much alike to ever truly be together. And I think they just portrayed this relationship better than any other one. That's really the only comparison I want to make. I felt like their kiss in this movie, I felt actually made way more sense than The Dark Knight Rises. I did not
Yes.
like I did not buy that at all. But when that happened in this movie, I was like, yes, that would happen. That makes total freaking sense. Everything that they've done together so far would have led to that moment for them.
Yes, and like, and Batman's like, um interest in Selena Kyle, but almost like more interest in using her to help his advantage in
And
in finding the Riddler,
yep.
but then developing a relationship with her without developing a relationship with her more because of her. Uh, yeah, it like just that entire relationship I thought was so interesting, where it wasn't just like a cheesy love thing thrown in there because it's Batman and Catwoman and that's just what they do. Um, it's not like Spider-Man and Silk when they're together because of whatever the comics say, their pheromones mix or something. It really felt like a relationship, and it felt like, yeah, like you said, that kiss scene was, uh, yeah, well deserved for the characters. And I really, while there was a part of me that was sad that they were separating, just because I loved Selena Kyle in this film, and I love the way that Zoe Kravitz played her, and I was like, no, I want more of her. Not that she can't come back. Um, but it really, it wasn't one of those moments where I was like, oh, they should have stayed together. Like, oh, they're just separating them to, like, I don't know, do something different. Like it really, really felt earned. And I think what you said put words to what I've been searching for, is that they're almost a little too similar, but they're kindred spirits. And I think that was well said.
Yeah, I mean, even like you said, like that first part where it's his interest in her to use her for his gain. Even when he first is with her, And he leans in, and it's like, even she thinks like, whoa, is this guy gonna kiss me? Like, what's going on here? Like, why is he leaning towards me? And she doesn't back up, like, okay, like, wonder what's going on here. And it's just so he can make sure the earpiece is in and working, like, or the contact lens. Like, I actually kind of like laughed at that part, because it was just like, yeah, he at right now, like, she was a means to an end when they first met. You're going to get me this information. That's what I need you for. And that's it. Like, you're going to do this because you're going to help me. And then just watching him slowly develop an interest for her. Again, like, I can't say anything more than just it was well earned through good script. And again, just little, little, just body link body language and everything else that these characters, well, actors did with these characters, just portrays so much that I've been, in a way, like, dying to see. This is almost everything that I have wanted from a Batman movie. Well, recognizing that I think there's a lot of great things. For me, like, this is the definitive Batman experience for me. I will speak for myself. This is what I have always wanted Batman to be on the big screen. As great as everything else has been, well, not everything, but as good as other things have been, this to me is what I have always wanted.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a different Batman, and I, again, the reason that I don't want to compare it, because it's not. I don't want to say that it's a better Batman. It's just a different one, and I've been wanting to see this Batman on the screen, and the relationships that they have, and the way that he is. He is just Batman, and he is so emotionally invested in fixing Gotham in the way that he sees fit because of what happened to him when he was young. He doesn't really care what happens, and he's not here for relationships, but he learns to value relationships. And I don't know. Maybe that's not what everybody wants from a Batman film, but I think that it's fantastic writing and fantastically performed. While, like you said earlier, we haven't even gotten to the Riddler, while being around an incredible mystery with a great reveal, mystery aspect. I already said that. I meant detective aspects. It was just, this isn't what we've seen before, and it's directed in a way that we haven't seen before, and that just, on top of being really well done, it makes it extra exciting.
Yeah, with the Riddler, I feel like just that, again, that more grounded reality of a Zodiac killer kind of vibe with the Riddler. Um, there's a lot that you can do off screen that can be unsettling. And sometimes, that is more disturbing than actually seeing it. I've watched horror movies all my life since I was, too young to supposedly be watching them. And in that aspect, it's like I can watch a horror movie where somebody gets their arm cut off, and it's like, at this point, it's almost funny now because it's just part of the game. But I mean, the Riddler kills people in this movie, and you don't have to see it on screen, but it's so much more effective than watching somebody, like, in a Friday the 13th movie, get an axe thrown at them and it split them in the head. The camera angle shots and just what you think he might be doing to them, and even the weird creepiness of him covering their head in duct tape. There's so many aspects of this
Yeah,
Riddler that are terrifying in a way and so unsettling. And then his own un this is not a word, but his own, like, ability to be unhinged when he doesn't get his way, and what he
yeah,
thinks is going to be his relationship with Batman is a very accurate representation of that character in a lot of mediums, how Riddler's portrayed. Like, his breakdown of, like, Batman doesn't want anything to do with him. Like,
yeah.
we didn't do anything together. That quick mental snap for him is played so well.
Yeah, I really, really agree. And I think that it's also interesting, just to add one other layer, to add like the social media element of him. Like, this
Right.
is somebody, like, who didn't get his way when he was young, so to speak. And I know that there's so much more than just that to this character, and that attention online that can motivate people to do scary things that are broken like this individual is. Like, what a realistic depiction of someone who would go to these lengths, and like, that just makes him even more terrifying because it feels so real, and it
Real.
feels so raw, and so all those things that are scary or kind of creepy, like, get under your skin a little bit more. And it makes for a great villain
Yeah,
because it's a villain that terrifies you beyond his moments on the screen.
right. Exactly. I think he was such a good choice for this, this version and this story of Batman that they wanted to tell. Like, this was perfect for this version of Batman. And in a way, you know, this Riddler and this villain has helped shape, Batman to, again, like, seeing him in the sequel of where Batman's going to go, how he treats things differently, how he approaches new villains or just anything. I think this was a really great catalyst for Batman understanding that he needed to be more for the city. It's not just he realized he needed to be more for the city just because, I don't know, a building got blown up and he saved a couple of people. Like, he needed to be more because Riddler was able to amass this group that felt like him, that felt ignored, or whatever other words you want to use. And geez, like, I can't just be fear. I have to be hope that, people aren't being ignored, or working with the police, not just Gordon, and they're just kind of tolerating it. Like, the police go from, like, tolerating this uneasy alliance with Batman and Gordon to what looks like embracing it. And that's how I'm going to help Gotham. But he needed Riddler to realize, like, I can't be like a one man show. I have to open.
Yeah, I really, really agree. And I think that it was the difficulty of where I think another thing that helped him with that is how, when he wasn't the perfect detective, it was the other people that helped him, including the Penguin at times,
Mm-hmm.
led him
Mm-hmm.
to the actual solution. Or that one guy who told him it was a carpet tool. Um, and I don't know. I just thought it was a really, really interesting depiction of how Batman gets to the conclusion, how Batman gets to the villain. Um, and the way, and even the conclusion when he's like hanging on the thing, like ready for the dude to blow him up with a shotgun. Uh,
Yeah.
and I kept thinking, like, what is he gonna do? What is he gonna do? Because for so much of what we see, it's Batman's show, and I kept thinking, how is Batman, gonna get out of it? And he didn't get out of it. Someone had to help him, um, which I thought was just, a great continuation of this story that Batman and Bruce have been going on throughout the film. But then also, just as a side note, before I forget, I love right after that, whatever it is, I think it's adrenaline that he pumps into his leg.
Yeah.
That was so sweet. I just, like, it started to happen, and me and the dude next to me, whoever it was, we just, like, freaked out together. It was
Yeah. And again, like, this ground, like, almost again, like, okay, we've gotten a more grounded Batman. And then it just makes sense that this guy who's doing that would have something like that. Like, there would be a time when he needs that to get him to the next level, so to speak. Um, I mean, there's been so much talk too, and this is, again, like, okay, there's a world in the world here where Gotham can certainly expand, and there's so much in the pipeline for Batman. Obviously, we know that because of comic books, but there's so many people talking of, so why was whatever was in the syringe, like, why was it green? Could that be a prototype for Venom? And eventually that's how Bane could come into this universe. uh she, at the end of the movie, Catwoman mentions, maybe I'll go to Bloodhaven. Well, if you're familiar with Bloodhaven, that's where Nightwing goes to fight crime on his own after he leaves Batman. There's so many little building blocks that, again, you're just like, okay, where could this go? but again, you want to see it. This movie is good enough to say this was a good movie. It is not Amazing Spider-Man 2 where hey, this movie is a trailer for this is what you want to see down the road. This is what we really want to give you, but you're going to get this instead.
Yeah.
So,
I, I really, really agree, and I think that it was just, and it just told a complete arc for Batman, like just the way he progressed and comes to terms with his like. Here's the thing: is that the film started with a Batman who we all know is broken because of what happened to his parents. And the film concludes with him resolving to some point what happened to his parents and his involvement in Gotham. We didn't need a trilogy for that to happen. And I think that that is just makes it a fantastic film in addition to the many, many other ways. Um, I haven't talked about the cinematography that much, but I felt like that was like I've never seen a Batman movie. I've never seen a blockbuster shot the way this film is, and I think that there's so many components that make it so uh, powerful. Isn't quite the word, but a little more potent in
right.
its delivery. That's the word.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it really is. These are not how normal, typical blockbuster tentpole movies are, but this, not even just how it's filmed. This is not your typical blockbuster. This is the kind of movie that makes hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is very different than what the typical top of the box office usually is. Which shows you can do things like that. You can make a dark, sort of grounded reality movie, and you have to have a good script. You have to have it make sense.
Yes, agreed.
Um, and I do want to go back and talk about where the Batmobile. Again,
Yes.
I talked about how this is a Bruce Wayne who and a Batman who seems to be doing this on his own. He has some help from Alfred, but this is true, like nuts and bolts. How am I going to make these things so that I can do what I need to do to protect Gotham? And oh man, that scene of the Batmobile and that car chase, like
Yes.
I almost hope that the Batmobile doesn't change drastically in the next movie. I mean, I would
Yeah.
like a different design, okay, but that souped up armored muscle car, it it is just when that thing came on screen and it vroom, 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 and the lights going, like it's different. I'm not saying it's better. It's for this universe though. It That's what makes sense in this universe. It's the best Batmobile ever. In Christopher Nolan's universe, the Tumbler makes sense and it's really cool. And in the original Batman, like, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, that's cool. But this is truly a Batmobile for this universe. And it's like, this is the best interpretation that you could do for what this Batman represents.
Yeah, I really, really agree, and just the way that when he's driving it, what he intends to do is just everything matches. You know, this is a guy who's again he's leaning into it. This is for show, and you know, as intimidating as the tumbler is, there's something that's a little bit more intimidating about a ripped down muscle car that's a little unhinged, and you don't know how much power is really there, but you know it's enough to do some damage, and you don't want to mess with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's just a great depiction of the way that Robert Pattinson's Batman wants Bruce Wayne to appear, and I think it makes and the way that that scene is shot, it's so tight and so
Mm.
interesting. I could watch that car chase so many times because it isn't the film the way your typical car chase is, but it's still just as engaging and edited so well. I that scene was so fun.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about too. We mentioned him. I would like to take a second to talk about John Turturro and his portrayal of Carmine Falcone because I love the steadiness of this character in this movie. When he meets Bruce on the steps and he's like, "Did you know that his dad saved my life right here? I was shot, chest opened up." I know I couldn't go to the hospital and I went here. And Bruce is like, it means he took the Hippocratic oath. And he's just
Yeah.
like, and he's like, huh, oath. And like, like that's cute, boy. And like taps him on the cheek. But even when Bruce, like, when again, like, for the longest time, there is no difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman because even when he shows up to confront Carmine as Bruce Wayne, he does it the same way as he did when he was in the costume.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing. There's no like right now there's Batman really like is almost Batman's not a mask. Like it's who he is. Like there's no difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman in this movie for the longest time because he shows up to Carmine's like as Bruce Wayne, okay, I'm ready to take and give the same beating that I was ready to take and give an hour ago when I showed up as Batman. And
Yeah.
even just the steadiness again and how calm and cool John Turturro plays that character of talking to Bruce about what happened when his father came to see him. I love the calmness of a guy who thinks he is untouchable. And that's how like he feels in this universe. He's like, I can tell you whatever I want. I My heartbeat is going to be at the same pace no matter what because you can't do anything. Again, only knowing him from those slapstick roles, I was really impressed with him and feel like I just had to mention how impressed I was with the calm demeanor, the arrogance that he portrayed.
Yeah, I agree. I really I thought it was so much fun. Great crime lord. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, I do want to mention one other time about again the fighting style of this Batman. It's interesting how this is this movie again. You have Batman and Batman Returns. You have Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. You have obviously the Dark Knight trilogy. Then you have Ben Affleck's version of Batman. You have all these different interpretations, and like once again, they found a new way to interpret and how this Batman fights. And again, I love the straight in your face style of this Batman. It's incredibly fascinating to me how they still manage to find a way to portray him. This is what you count the first four movies, the seven, you have Justice League, you have Batman v Superman. You know, the live action, this is the eighth interpretation of a Batman, and you're still
right.
finding ways to change up his style and how he fights.
Yeah, I thought it was so fun.
So, all right, so let's talk about what some of our favorite scenes are in this movie. I'm sure we kind of mentioned them. I can guess one of yours, but it, for me, there's so many things. But again, there's that first shot of him coming out of the shadows. I really love that. Obviously, the car chase scene with the Batmobile is really good. But just that hallway fight scene where he's taking gunfire, it's all really well done. But I would have to give the nod for like my favorite scene in this movie is the ending where he just, he comes down from the glass and just starts, toe to toe with these henchmen with guns and everything else in between. And just again, the brutality of the fighting style. I just love that ending scene. Everything that it leads up to with him leading those people with the flare. It's again, because it's such, it's the perfect wrapping job on that Christmas present that you can't wait for somebody to open. You take all of that, you corner the edges
Yeah.
just right. You fold it. You
Yeah.
you take your ruler to crease like it's just it put that journey, that image from him leading them out and then him carrying and going from darkness and then standing in Gotham with it starting to, sunrise and it's there's so much imagery there. It's just everything that happens there I'm enamored with.
Yeah, I really, really agree. It was so, yeah, that was a phenomenal scene that I did not expect to happen the way it did, and it was so great.
So is there anybody in this movie that, I mean, we've certainly spent so much time talking about what works. Is there anything, Harrison, that really is there something that didn't work in this movie for you that, maybe was a misstep or just, because there were so many other great moments in this movie that it was like, oh, all right, well that's not quite as good. And maybe sometimes when, great going down to good doesn't seem like that far of a jump. So maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
I'm really trying to think of some, and though genuinely the only one at least that I can remember is the end scene where he's carrying those people on the roof and he drops off that girl to be life flighted and she like reaches for him because she doesn't want him to go away. I don't know. There was just something about the way she performed that just was too cheesy for me and it just did not work at all. Um,
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I remember. Yeah, definitely.
so I mean, like I loved the scene and what it meant, but the I don't know, the performance I did not like. So other than that, I there wasn't really a moment that didn't work for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel the same way. Like now that you mentioned that scene, it it's in my head now, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's actually a very valid point with that one little bit there. Um, it it's easy to say in a Batman movie, Batman was your could be your favorite part, but is there anything else that you want to point out that you were surprised at how the movie interpreted it, portrayed it? We certainly talked about the portrayal of Gordon or Alfred. Is there anything else that really stood out to you as a wow, I didn't expect it to be portrayed as that, or I didn't know how they were going to, but it was more than what I thought.
Yeah, there's one, and it's when Batman is down in his cave with a somewhat put together Batmobile, listening to Nirvana on vinyl, rewatching the replay of his contact lens camera, trying to decipher a code that Alfred comes down and helps him decipher. And it is just that is like an encapsulation of a brooding Batman, at least the way I would describe it. And there's just so much about that scene that I loved. I think that it's just a funny note that the one song we know Batman listens to is vinyl is Nirvana. But more than that, it's just like it was just a great take on the character and what the character would be doing after an event like this. Yeah, he'd be hunkered down in his bat cave figuring it out. He's not interested in too much else. Um, and yeah, I think that's of the so many scenes that we've already mentioned. That was one other one that I just was such a fun new experience with Batman for me.
Yeah, I think one thing that I was surprised by, I knew this was going to be a detective story. They kept talking about it. I
Right,
was just so impressed with how much of, again, we get a lot more of Bruce and, well, of Batman being a detective. We haven't gotten it to this level up until
right.
this movie. And I like the attention to detail. And again, he is not perfect by any means right now as a detective. Like he's not the world's greatest detective yet, but you can bet he's smarter than your average person. Like
Hmm.
it's clear that he's working with a different deck in this movie, and I really like that portrayal. And I will say the portrayal of Gotham in this movie. Again, it's different because it's a different interpretation and a different look at the city of Gotham than we've gotten. But how everybody in there's so much going on in Gotham, and everybody feels like an integral part of it. There's so many people in this. You know, you have Selena Kyle's friend who ends up being dead, but you also have Penguin who, is kind of minor in this, but you can see turning, certainly that ominous shot of him looking out into Gotham is like, okay, we're gonna maybe start to see the Penguin that's a big time player. Carmine Falcone, just all the little ins and outs of Gotham and how there's so many actual players waiting for their turn to make an impact. I really, really like the presentation of Gotham and how many people, in this city could cause problems down the road for Batman.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the like visual and physical presentation of Gotham, from the production design and locations, very different. I mean, the amount of rain they had, I
Mm-hmm.
just loved. And the ability that Bruce Wayne would have to walk around with a baseball cap and his eyes kind of blacked out, on his motorbike, following people around. I like that Gotham. I really do. But also, like you said, the way that we see this is a city that's messed up. This is a city that's fallen apart. Like, it's not just a city that we see falling apart in that one part of Gotham that Bruce Wayne sometimes goes into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like again, I'm thinking of like again, not to compare, but I'm just thinking of like the Christopher Nolan films where we have like the very clean, very city Chicago looking Gotham, and then we have like the super grungy Gotham that he sometimes goes to.
Right. You accidentally get cut off trying to take your exit, and all of a sudden you're in the worst part of the world ever. Like,
Right, yeah. And I felt like this was a Gotham that's not just like has locations that are dangerous, but just has like an organization and a people that are dangerous for Batman. And I
mhm.
really like that version of
Yeah, no, I think again, not not to compare, because it's such a different interpretation of everything, and again, that is just crazy to me that how differently Matt Reeves and Pattinson and everybody that's involved in this project managed to reinvent Batman on the big screen again. Reinvent Batman, reinvent Gotham, and make this still feel new and fresh for a character that we have seen on the big screen. There's been some gaps, but since 1989, this character has been on the big screen, and all this time later, they found a way to reinvent Batman for another generation to say, perhaps, okay, kind of like Star Wars, depending on
Yeah.
when you grew up, this is my trilogy. This is my trilogy. Oh, well, I'm a prequel person or whatever the case may be. Depending on how far they take this, and certainly if you listen to the interviews with Matt Reeves and Pattinson, eh, they know where they want to go with this. Like, if it's up to them,
Oh yeah.
they're going to make more movies because they know exactly what they want to do and what story they want to tell, which is super impressive. Like, Pattinson's a very, I respect him because he seems like he has done his homework and he knows
Yes.
where he wants this character to go.
Oh yeah, and the way that he's a character, or he's a character, an actor who, when you ask him about Batman comics, he says more than the Long Halloween, the Killing Joke, and Batman Year One. Like
Right.
he almost never mentioned those. Like, he says like, oh yeah, of course those, and then he goes and mentions these other comics that you've never even heard of. And like, not that you have to know the comics to make good movies or to portray a good Batman. Like, you can just tell that he really cares about portraying. And I also was just going to say that I feel like you're saying something. I just lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? You were talking about just a second ago. I lost it. I don't remember what it was. But something else that I was going to say is that I just really, really like. Well, I just lost that. What was I going to say? I don't.
What was I just talking about?
Right before
Um,
you talked about they know what they want to do. Right before that, what were you talking about?
God, now I lost my train of thought on that. But
uh, oh man, I had something. You said something that like sparked something in my brain, and I just lost it. We were talking about Gotham and how we like Gotham. Um,
I mean, I did say just how it was impressive that they found a way after all this time to
oh,
reinvent and say like, okay, this could be like this is my trilogy.
yes, thank you. That's what it was. Um, yeah, and I feel like what's difficult is, like I talked about, it was Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson, Michael Giacchino, and Greg Fraser. Like my dream team were making a movie together, and then they were making a Batman movie. Like, of course, I was excited, but then I was kind of nervous. Like, okay, like how many times can we do Batman? Especially, uh, I really was not a fan of Batman in Batman v Superman. Like, I felt like that was just a waste of the character, and I felt like pop culture, like we as an audience, had gotten kind of sick of Batman, and so I was just nervous. Like, are they just kind of destined for trouble the way that Ryan Johnson or J.J. Abrams are destined for trouble? Picking up Star Wars again. Um, that type of idea, and the way that they were able to come at this, and I don't think that they were just saying like, oh, we got to like redo Batman, we got to reinvent Batman. I don't think that that's what their mindset was. I mean, they definitely did that, but I felt like they were just interested in like, hey, Batman's a sweet character, let's tell a really cool story that we care about and we can all be invested in, let's tell it really well. And that's what they did, and it just so happens that it's different because that's what they wanted to do. I don't know, it feels like a different motivation than like, oh, we need to reinvent Batman, so we can print money type of thing. It's like, hey, we want to tell something cool with this character, we're going to reinvent him on the way. And it just, I don't know, it makes it exciting to watch instead of a little bit nerve wracking to watch, if that makes sense, where you're like, are they going to be able to pull it off? You just have confidence they're going to from the moment.
Yeah, I think all really good points. So if that is all, I think this is a perfect time to move on to roll credits. Now, roll credits is anything interesting about the film, like any facts, talk a little bit about the box office, anything behind the scenes, and we'll give an overall rating system between 1 and 5 reels. And obviously, the box office is self explanatory if you've been watching this movie. Number one will be posed to be number one at the box office again. I believe it's already shot up to over 500 million worldwide. So certainly a very profitable movie so far. Continues to get really good word of mouth. But one thing that I'll point out just really quickly behind the scenes is I'm interested because there's been talks about a scene that was shot that will get in the release of the movie on home video, and that is the mysterious prisoner at the end of the movie that is talking with Riddler. Um, I'm really interested to see that scene because it's heavily hinted that this will be this universe's Joker, and he's already got a relationship with Batman. So I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of stuff they shot that they actually did not show and where that could lead for this universe.
Yeah, I like how when they talked about it, they like, especially Matt Reeves says like, oh, it's not like something that I want to put in the movie. Like, it wasn't like a director's cut that we're gonna have that in. Like, I
Right.
like how this was his film. But then he's like, oh, but we also just shot this cool scene that I want to show you, type of thing, that didn't match the film, but it's a cool scene. And I'm really, really excited about, because I felt like, I forget his name, who plays him, Barry Keoghan, I think is how you play his last name.
Yeah,
Um,
I probably would never pronounce it right. I
he plays the Druig in Eternals.
yes.
But I like how he's credited as the unseen Arkham prisoner.
Mhm.
That scene between him and Riddler, I mean, that was great. Like, there's one thing the city loves more than a hero, that's a comeback, or whatever. He said something like that,
Yeah.
and oh, I gave me chills. I was so excited. I mean, just the way. I mean, even if they don't do anything with it, what a great way to just have fun with the universe that is Batman.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I said, even if he's not in the sequel, because like they've mentioned things like Mister Freeze or Hush, or even like the Calendar Man. That would be sweet to see the Calendar Man in a blockbuster movie for
Mhm.
Batman. That'd be
Yeah.
crazy. But I love that scene. It was a blast. Like, it was just fun.
And I mean, if you listen to Pattinson about what he would like, and even some of the background talk in this movie and the way that that Gotham is built, eh, I can totally see the Court of Owls being a real thing in this universe.
Oh, that would be so cool.
So there's so much potential, and I cannot stress this enough that I love the fact that this movie would make you want to see what else this universe has to offer while still saying I can watch this on my own, and if I don't get anything else, then this could be a great standalone Batman story. It's not like some of these other movies where I'm like, well, yeah, I would see the sequel because I mean, I've already seen the first one, and maybe they'll give me what I want this time. Like, no, this movie gave me what I wanted. So, anything else that you want to mention about the film before we move on to the rating?
Um, Let me just think super quick, kind of like scan through the film in my head before we do. Um, oh, I did not mention this. I love that scene when Batman does go into the club. I forget what it's called. Um, and he's fighting all those thugs and he like grapples. He like shoots
Mm,
someone's leg with his grappling gun. I keep bringing up this dude next to me in the theater, but like that was a moment where we like grabbed each other's arm and like freaked out because that scene was just, I mean, I don't even know who this dude was. He disappeared with his friends afterwards, but and that was just a scene where like the progression of it, just everything, uh, the way that the dude like breaks the bat on Batman and he
mm-hmm.
just turns and looks at him. Yeah, that was a fantastic scene. Like you want to talk about like a Batman who's not afraid to lose it when he's committed to something and he's going in there with a purpose, and you better get out of his way. I love that
Right.
scene.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I will do is I will go first with my rating system. I'll let you cap off that segment. For me, this is easy. I reviewed this on Letterbox. This is easily a 5 reels movie for me. Again, my interpretation. I have been banging the drum since he was announced that this would be the definitive version of Batman for me. I think Robert Pattinson stayed true to that. This is my favorite interpretation of Batman. I love the way he plays this character. I love Gotham. I love how this is a gritty noir crime story that certainly turns into the potential to be so much more in future installments. The relationships between Batman and Selena Kyle, just everybody, how everybody feels like they could be a threat. The way that they handled who was the rat, that scene, we never even talked about that, but that whole thing, it never felt not cheesy, but it always was like, okay, it could be that person. Oh my god, it's not. Okay, so who could it be? It always felt like they were on the right track and then the rug got pulled out from under them, but it was believable every single time. This movie, again, like I've stated, this is what I wanted from Batman when they announced this movie. This is what I had envisioned and so much more in my head. And again, as a personal thing, this is the best Batman movie I have ever watched. This is absolutely at the top of my list, number one. There are no questions asked for me, and it is absolutely a 5 out of 5 reels.
And I am just going to follow along with you. It is 5 out of 5. It is when I want to see a Batman movie, this film contains everything that I'd love to see from a Batman movie. On top of that, it has a fantastic score with some of the best motifs and a great theme. And the cinematography, I didn't get to talk about that enough. Greg Fraser, he might be replacing my number one DP. I don't know. It's just the way he shoots things. I love. Um, Matt Reeves. I mean, and then Robert Pattinson. Like we have Edward Collins. Is that his name from Twilight? As
Yep.
Batman, and he's the phenomenal Batman. And it is just so invigorating to watch and thrilling. Does great to the character of Batman and made me want to find new love for Batman, so to speak. I'd kind of fallen out of my love for Batman. And for a Batman film to make you love Batman again, it did its job. So yeah, 5 out of 5 reels without a doubt.
Love it. So, listeners, thank you so much. It has been what feels like a while since we did anything. I certainly just at Matt Goes to the Movies, we finally were able to get up part 4 of our video game podcast, which Harrison was a part of. That was so much fun. Was finally able to get that all together and upload that. But this has been so much fun, and for the listeners, thank you so much for staying with the show, downloading episodes, interacting with episodes. It's always so much fun. Certainly, there's some really cool things coming at Matt Goes to the Movies. We're going to be reviewing the Halo TV show, which we're going to try and make that a little interactive. We're looking to get together a actually multiplayer group for Halo Infinite multiplayer for listeners of the show after our review. So look forward to that. But before we go, I would love to give Harrison a chance to talk about the Basement Binge, because listeners, if this is your first time to this show and you like what this show has to offer, you like this episode and check out other ones, I promise you're going to love the Basement Binge even more, because it's a fantastic show. So Harrison, take some time, tell listeners what they're, what you got for them.
Oh, well, thank you for the chance to do that. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me to do this podcast. Like I said at the beginning, it's been a while since I've recorded an episode. Life has been kind of crazy since a month ago when I quit my job and been trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life since then. But this has relit the fire underneath me to sit down and record an episode. Because I have some other episodes that Matt and Rob and I recorded on How to Train Your Dragon. I got to finish out Animation Hall of Fame 2. It was supposed to end in February. We're now halfway through March, and I want to get it done because I love some animated movies that we were going to talk about. Additionally, some other great things. The Basement Binge is a movie review podcast all about binging things that I enjoy, whether that's your favorite franchise or series. We've done Fast and Furious with Matt. That was a blast. We've done the Marvel movies, if you're into that. Did Nolan November and the Dark Knight trilogy included in that. We got things coming up this year like Transformers. Maybe Star Wars, I'm thinking about this year. Maybe Mission Impossible. I don't know. The schedule's still up in the air. But if you like movies and you like talking about them and you like a cluster of movies together, then you probably like the Basement Binge. So go check it out wherever you get podcasts. But thanks again for having me, Matt. This has been, I haven't had a chance to I've had, not that this isn't casual, but I've had more casual conversations, shorter conversations about the Batman. And more than anything, this has just been a blast to sit down and finally just talk about the Batman, because what an exciting thing to talk about. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Listeners, the notes, I should say the links for the Basement Binge will be in the show notes of this episode. You can check that show out, interact with this show, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, the email, everything you need to connect with Matt Goes to the Movies will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time at Matt Goes to the Movies.